Welcome everyone. It's our pleasure to have you all today in this series of live webinar in which we'll be discussing youth peace and security agenda in Africa from different perspectives with distinguished youth activists from different African member states. We are all honored today to have with us also Mr. Ali Al-Tiouk, who is a youth and peace building expert, who will be also exchanging thoughts and sharing his expertise in terms of how we can have more impact in terms of achieving YPS agenda. So welcome everyone. I will be asking directly my first question, and is going to be to you, Mr. Ali. Uh, what's youth peace agenda? What's youth peace milestones? What have been done so far?
Thank you, Arif. First of all, thank you for putting this webinar together. I need to start with saying that by no means I'm an expert on African youth, or I'm not from Africa either. So I should say this as a disclaimer right in the beginning. What I say might not necessarily be Africa focus. So I just need to say this as a disclaimer. So for your question about what are the milestones for the YPS agenda, it's at the global level, there are three important policy documents. First one is the Security Council Resolution 2250 in 2015, adopted, which formalized the Youth Peace and Security agenda at the Security Council. Then we have 2419, Security Council Resolution 2419 in 2018, which had a greater emphasis on the youth inclusion in peace negotiations and peace processes broadly. And the most recent resolution, 2535 in 2020, which set a precedent, which is probably the most progressive resolution adopted at the UN Security Council. It has a very progressive language, particularly on the protection of civic spaces. So these are the three main milestones adopted at the global level, and then there are also regional frameworks, African continental framework. There's EU Council conclusions have been adopted in the recent years, a couple of them, and ASEAN as well doing work. So there is some work done at the regional level, and also at the national. There are also national frameworks. Legislations are being underway. So those legislations are less known, or like less. So far, we heard they are not maybe formalized as much as the global policy frameworks. But these are the main milestones. But to be frank with your question, the real milestone should be considered as the greater youth participation in peace building processes. These are policy documents. These are milestones for the policymakers. The real milestone should be understood from a perspective of young people's engagement in power sharing, decision making, and their harnessing their agency for peace building. So about this, we learned a lot with the progress study, the missing piece, progress study on youth peace and security. But we have a lot to learn, and also put in action, put in the funds, put in programs, and also building greater networks among young people, so that young people are able to actually not obstructed to build peace. So this is the real milestone. Okay.
Thank you, Ali. Speaking about the historical study that was done on YPS entitled "The Missing Piece," so in which you were part of the research team, what can you tell us? What brought to or what highlighted this study, and especially that you have been speaking that the other policy papers, such as the different UNCC resolutions, they are considered as a policy makers papers, especially also at the, speaking about the African Union. African Union also, just to share this information, the African Union also in the month of July, they have adopted the Continental Framework on Youth, Peace and Security in Africa, as well as the Continental Action Plan. So speaking about the missing piece, what's its importance? How can it can be read, or what can we highlight, or what we can get from this study, this research study on youth, peace and security, that is not limited only to one particular region, but it concerns the youth in the global sphere at whole?
Thank you. This is an excellent question. Most important dimension of the missing piece study is its participatory nature. It's the lead author of the progress study, Graham Simpson, who's from South Africa. His approach to this study was particularly important, where he said we can't speak about youth inclusion if we don't include young people in this process of doing a study about young people. So what progress study, the missing piece study, demonstrated is that it is possible to do research where the voices of young people who are usually not heard in high-level global policy discussions could be transmitted. It is possible to listen to young people. And what the missing piece study demonstrated, that young people are doing amazing work at many levels, in different regions, in different countries, and prevents different sorts of violence. Their peace-building agency interact between different phases of conflict, and also it also bridges between silos of the international system. It goes between humanitarian work. We've seen this with the COVID-19, for example. Many peace builders quickly become humanitarian actors. They are development actors. They are human rights protectors. So what missing piece study shows the diversity of youth-led peace-building work, or youth agency in peace-building. But the most important element, as I said, is the participatory nature of that study, which was done in collaboration with many UN agencies who contribute to regional consultations, but also the collaboration with the civil society organizations. It is somehow unusual for the UN to work closely with civil society organizations, or create the space for UN to civil society organizations to feed into a global policy process. So the missing piece study created that channel. Many peace-building organizations contributed to study. This is like Search for Common Grounds, Conciliation Resources, Safer Worlds, and many others who have done focus group discussions in many regions, in many countries. They went to local level where they have good access to young people. So they help actually UN to listen to another voice. That was significantly important. And also I need to say that United Networks of Young Peace Builders, they have done amazing work to increase youth participation in all that process, because they have the network where they know young people across the world. So they help a lot. So quick answer to your question, what is very most important element of the missing piece study is the participatory nature. And if there's any sort of study that is being done about young people in similar way in anywhere, if it's in Africa or anywhere else, if it's about young people should be able to participate in those type of studies and shape the messages that those studies say about young people. And this means that we need to engage, of course, young people from all diversity backgrounds, not just elite youth, but young people who have been marginalized or face violence, or who have been engaged in violence as well. So we need to listen to those voices.
Thank you, Ali. Speaking about Africa and what can the youth, whether they come from the elite or they come from the civil society activists. I now move to Mr. Martin from Cameroon, who uh, my question to you, Martin, how, as an academic researcher and also as a youth peace activist, how do you see the YPS agenda at the national level in Cameroon? What does it mean to the Cameroonian youth?
Thank you for the question. And I greet everyone there. I'm happy to have all those people. Ali Atiok, I didn't know him and I discover. Uh, for me, as I saw in many regions there, far north of Cameroon, and also north and southwest, the main things is inclusion. Inclusion in two aspects. The first aspect is integration. The second aspect is responsibility. So if you want to think about something concerning youth, as we talk about peace and security, youth are involved. The first misunderstanding of scholars was to think about people as threats. This is the first misunderstanding. When you think about people as threats, it's difficult to make a system, a kind of integrative system and a participative approach. That's why in some aspects, people who come from east of Europe have another kind of approach as intellectuals. They think about it as human security, and talking about human security, you have to change, you have to make a shift, a kind of shift in intellectual and also in policies. So now there are sort of initiative of including youth in political and security policies, but they still have the idea and the conviction that they can think about youth as a threat, and that is very wrong. And I saw it many times, and coming from many trips in Cameroon and other Central African region, the problem is the same. I was going to, with a kind of hypothesis, thinking that one of the most problem is economic. So if we make economic inclusion of youth, we will resolve the problem of youth involvement in security problem. But I was really surprised on what I saw. I saw in far north that youth who were having activities were involved in kind of criminality, a kind of soft criminality, as we can say it, but they have economic activities. So it made me change my mind and asking another question: why are people economically include in economic life involved in such activities? And the second one was that they link political inclusion, social inclusion, here we talk about families, and security. So they make a kind of they reject social rule and political rule because they think they are not part of it, but they have economic activity. So this is the first thing I'm talking about. For me, is inclusion. Inclusion is a word, but inclusion in two things. You respect people, you include them. So you think that those youths who don't have work and those who have work are important to think about policies, then you include them in decision making. The second one, if you think that they can be responsible for something, here you make integration in all aspects. That's my first reaction on it. And it also gives something about what Mr. Ali Atok said about the diversity. Think about how to manage the diversity. Here we are very diverse. We have tribes, we have many kind of ethnic groups, but the integration starts in the very, very small social unit. Then you can go to the national one. That's my first reaction.
Thank you, Martin. Speaking about actually one of the things that also I have been noticing when I started promoting for youth peace and security in Africa is the different narratives. It's true that we do have many common similarities between YPS agenda in the Arab region, in the European region, the Eastern, and in the African region as well. But there are actually many differences between how YPS is being dealt. And this is actually due to the different type of tribes, society, and also the enriching languages that we do have in Africa. So YPS agenda is actually, even in Africa, it's being dealt in a different way from a state to another one. And it's the narrative or the stereotype of seeing youth as a threat. It's actually completely wrong. We do have so many policy paper, paper for decision makers and also research studies, as we have pointed out at the beginning of this webinar, that actually puts highlight on youth. And that's what should the key decision makers take into consideration, and not only them, but also the youth. They need to promote for better youth participation, and they should be more engaged. Speaking about engagement, I will be asking my next questions to Naamania. Naamania, who is from Uganda. So Naamania, could you please tell us what's the added value? What's the importance of YPS agenda in Uganda? The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you once again for inviting me for this webinar. I think it's a very important discussion, especially here in Uganda, as we get ready for the election season at the beginning of this year, the beginning of next year. The Youth Peace Security Agenda in Uganda is very important because Uganda has had a series of wars that have left different parts of the country in poverty or recovering from war-torn situations. We have northern Uganda that suffered from the insurgents of the Lord's Resistance Army, and the other half of the country didn't suffer from the same. So the youth in northern Uganda and the youth in the southern part of Uganda have different challenges towards their participation and towards engaging them in youth in peace and security. So the framework to me, or the agenda of youth, peace and security, is very important for Ugandan youth at this point where we have a polarization in our political system, where we have the ruling party that has been in power for more than 30 years, and we have a multi-politics system that was introduced in the country, but has not been able to change the power system in the country. Right now we have Bobby Wine, who has been very vocal on taking power in the country and has also influenced a number of urban youth to believe that he can actually bring change. Youth peace and security in Uganda is important when you look at the way in which Ugandan youth view unity, because for you to influence the way youth view peace and security, you have to look at the dynamics. Uganda is a country, like very many African countries, that is having very many cultures, and the youth in Uganda are more centered on their cultural allegiances as compared to having a national vision of unity. That has been a very big problem in uniting them, even under political parties. I can give you an example of where in universities, people are aligned more to, for example, you'll have the Bechiga Association of people coming from the Western Uganda, or you'll have the Acholi Association of people coming from Northern Uganda, as compared to saying you're having the youth of Uganda under one unified umbrella. So the idea that many Ugandans are aligned more to tribal or religious affiliations influences the way they perceive unity. When you look at the agenda on increasing the participation of youth in the political processes in Africa or in Uganda, the Ugandan government has introduced policies to increase youth participation. You have the National Youth Policy of 2013, you have the Equal Opportunities Act, and you have youth livelihood programs, which are aimed at enhancing the participation of youth in the political process or enhancing their participation in economic activities. However, these policies have not been translated into increasing any form of participation of youth. One, because the youth groups or livelihood programs that are available in Uganda are marked with corruption. Many people view them as opportunities for elite youth, and rural youth are excluded. At the same time, there are very strict rules on how you can actually access these platforms. For example, you have to be educated to access, to be part of certain youth councils. You need to have security of some sort to access certain livelihood programs. This disempowers very many youth and leaves very many youth frustrated, and at the same time realigning themselves according to tribal lines, because of the political system also being aligned towards tribal lines. And this is not a problem that has arisen recently. This is a problem that has been there since Uganda was handed over independence from the British. So the indirect rule or the different forms of colonization left the Ugandan society along tribal lines. So right now, as Ugandan youth, with the different challenges we face in employment, we have challenges in access to health, we have challenges in investing in our startup capitals and so forth. The Youth Peace Agenda provides a platform for us to advocate for our policies that the government has already put in place to be more effective, to be more inclusive. We have quota systems of how many youth can join parliament, but they put a very heavy price on you entering parliament. It's 3 million Ugandan shillings. And to convert it for people who aren't in Uganda, $1,000 is about 3.6 million Ugandan shillings. So which young person out there has money like that for you to be part of the political process? At the same time, accessing different platforms, they did it in the form of the policy targets youth organizations. These youth organizations at times are sponsored by NGOs, at times by political parties. However, their goals and targets are not aligned to the needs of the youth. They're aligned to the people sponsoring them. And the youth that are involved in these different youth groups are not educated enough to understand the impact of what they're advocating for.
Namanya, if you
please.
may, to you, what's the biggest challenge,
Yes.
or what's the top priority of YPS agenda in Uganda? If you can point at the very top priority, what it can be.
I believe the top priority would be involving more youth into the negotiation process, the political process, in order to influence the policies that run the country, and also influence the electoral process. Because most of the conflict that is arising right now, the polarization in the country, is based on the electoral process that many people believe is not giving Ugandans the leaders that they need. So if we have more youth being involved in that process, more youth being given platforms to engage with leaders on that process, then I believe that that would be the main agenda for Uganda.
Okay.
Going into the election process.
Thank you a lot. Thank you a lot, because that proves what we have been saying. Like, we were speaking about the state of YPS in Cameroon, and to Cameroonian youth, it's more about social and economic inclusion. Where we go to Uganda, it's more of having more integration and more inclusion of youth in the political processes. My next question go to you, Ali. So you see this kind of differences and narratives. What are actually, based on your experience in this field of YPS, how do you see this? How do you see the differences of YPS agenda, and also what's the added value?
So just to understand your question, you are asking me what are the differences between the countries, or what is
the narratives, especially based on your experience? You have worked, and if I may present also, you are the co-author of We Are Here, a research study, an independent research study on youth, peace and security milestones. So my question is, based on your experiences, you have seen how YPS agenda in Europe is being dealt, how it's being addressed, and how it's being addressed in Africa or in the other states. Like, you have heard with us how Cameroonian youth, they see YPS, the Uganda youth, how do you see YPS? What's to you?
I think that's a difficult question, because I think it is better that young people from those countries speak about, like, I won't be able to say this on behalf of them, how their governments deal with the YPS agenda. But I think it's the most important thing is that when we are speaking about the YPS, how it's being dealt in different regions, in different geographies, is that there are different thematic focuses rising. I mean, this is a generalization which I'm not so comfortable to make up, but I can say that this is for example, in Middle East and North Africa region, it's the YPS is a lot about prevention of violent extremism. That's the main narrative that's out there, and it's going it spreads to other regions as well. But it is tightly connected or understood from that angle, where it's the YPS agenda means that how governments can prevent young people not to become extremists. But that's a very narrow angle, and I think it comes with risks for the YPS agenda itself. But if you start thinking about this in many African, I mean, how governments approach to YPS agenda and how young people approach or see value in YPS agenda are sometimes not necessarily are in line. It's a we need to embrace that difference. Governments usually approach this from it as they are governing the states. They approach it from a state security perspective, and young people usually speak from a more human security sort of perspective, where we see that those different theoretical notions clashes through the YPS agenda as well. Is that where government wants to see this YPS agenda is to secure states, stabilize states, and young people speak about their own security. But to make that point is that the security dimensions of that is the main I think the main difficult part, or the part that is like actually where YPS agenda is clashes with the different notions. So how young people can, for example, for a lot of young people, what we hear in, for example, what we are hearing from young people in Nigeria or in the US is that young people wants to involve in the security sector reform, rather than just they want to be speaking about how they can engage in preventing violent extremist groups. So there is a difference here, level of engagement in different thematic subjects we need to embrace, is that young people are speaking about their participation in actually governing states, building state institutions, but they don't want to be just like implementing partners of the government's, government-led PVE, CVE projects. So if YPS agenda wants to move forward, that's the thing, that's the important step that we need to understand and embrace it. And it's a lot about power relationship, is that whether governments or the state start sharing power with young people, this doesn't mean that having couple of young people in the state structures. This means open, transparent spaces for governments to actually open up this for transparent channels for young people to actually hold their states accountable. And that's the voice young people raise across the world. I would say this is universal in my view, in my understanding. There's a different levels of demands, but what is common in all regions, but that's what I try to focus on, is that young people's stake in the governance of security institutions.
Okay.
I will stop here.
So this actually brings us to my next question. How are we going as youth peace builders? How are we going to convince all the different stakeholders, whether it comes to government, or institutions, civil society organizations, corporate institutions, media centers, newspaper and TVs, and also key personalities? How can we convince such kind of stakeholders to embrace this YPS agenda?
Is this question for me or?
Yeah, please.
Okay, this is I think this requires a lot of effort. This is a long journey in my view. It's if YPS agenda is being implemented very quickly by a government, I think young people need to be suspicious about that. That would be my main recommendation. It's a long-term process that requires a lot of negotiations between young people and long, diverse youth constituencies. A lot of we spoke about diversity of young people. Namanya spoke about this. Martin spoke about the diversity of young people. It has to be diverse young people who are speaking with governments to actually develop such process, so that participatory process is essential to develop such an approach for a YPS agenda. So for YPS agenda to become something meaningful in the interaction between young people and their states. And the point I think here is that how young people actually can demonstrate or show, convince their governments, youth peace and security agenda is helpful for governments themselves, for political parties, for the state structures, institutions. But how young people are going to demonstrate that? That's how I would narrow this question. And I think that there is a pathway for that. Is that one is that it's possible to show what youth peace and security is mutually reinforcing with the development work. Governments are interested in development, of course, economic development, social development. These are interests of young people and governments, and that finding that mutual interest is and demonstrating the young people's peace building agency in that is, I think, essential. And the other part, which I think is the more tenuous relationship, is the way that showing that young people are right bearers in that interaction between their relationship with governments. Youth peace and security agenda somehow, especially with the Security Council Resolution 2535, indicates that young people's political agency exists particularly impactful in the civic spaces, and those spaces are crucial for actually a peaceful society to flourish. That's where the everyday life is for everyone. It's not that we are spending most of our time with the governments. It's actually we are living our lives. Our everyday is about actually our daily interactions with people and being able to trust to your friend, your community, your school teacher, etc. So in that area, we see that right violations can happen in that area too, and it's like what we need to start seeing it, showing that youth peace and security agenda is actually allowing young people to signal where the right violations are taking place, or the young people's human rights, freedom of assembly, freedom of expression are being violated. That this is the area that young people can use YPS agenda to demonstrate it. But it's also about young people need to understand that YPS agenda is also about big policy issues. What I mean by this is the investment in education, investment in if security, we are speaking about youth peace and security. So when we are speaking about security, we see investment in education can be taken away with the heavy investment in military, with the heavy investment in security establishments. So this means that YPS agenda can be a tool for young people to demand, okay, states, governments, you're spending too much in security. Now it's time for you to spend in where young people are, where young people need their basic needs. So I think there is a way to show this. One is the negative way, is the counterproductive impact of heavy investment in military securities or overall security investment. And the other way to show this is to make the argument around how investment in social areas are more effective than actually heavy military investment or security-focused investment. So, here, I hope this was a clear answer.
Indeed. Thank you a lot. Thank you for sharing with us your expertise, Ali. So one of the ways to make the youth and all the different stakeholders, whether from government to youth to media, is to use actually the media to promote widely for the YPS agenda. My question now goes to you, Mohammed Salaha from Mali, you are actually a journalist. So based on your point of view, how do you see the media, or what can you say about YPS being promoted, or what are the ways of YPS agenda to be promoted by the media? The floor is yours. Just open your mic, please.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm very humbled to be part of this webinar. So I'm Francophone, but I will try to speak English and share my little knowledge about the topic with you. So what I think about youth, peace and security is a very important it's a very important one point of the SDGs. And related to media, the field I'm working, I think that media are the one who should play the higher role in the promotion of peace and security, because all the communication, most of the communication in the world are being through media. So youth, as many youth working in media, it's our responsibility to promote youth action who are going toward peace and security. The current situation in Mali is not safe. So we are in a process of peace, security, and stabilization. And what we need most important is to show action, to talk about action youth are taking toward peace and security in media. Unfortunately, this is not done at all level. But on my way, I try to do my best to show the work of youth entrepreneurs who are taking other youth and work with them so that they can be involved, because most of the time, what is the aim of those youth who are not involved is because wasivity, they don't have nothing to do. So when we include youth, when we include them, when we train them, they are ready to take initiative. And when they take initiative through peace, through security, they definitely will impact. Even one person impacted can impact another person's. So it's like a continuity. And all those actions must be shown in media. The world must know what you are doing to build peace, to build security. A world without peace, a world without security, believe me, no one can live in this world. I'm just want to take an example about the situation of Mali, the north and the center. So it's unpredictable, the situation, and it's also not stable. So what we try to do is to go and meet youth in those areas, youth who are involved in armed group, and the youth who are involved in self-defense group, talk to them, and report on what they think, and also sensitize them to leave the weapons, and to go through dialogue, because dialogue is the only way to get back peace. With weapon, we cannot get back peace, but with dialogue, for sure we can. So I'll try to resume. Media have to play a key role, and we need to convince the political leader to empower media regarding the promotion of peace and security. We need also to empower youth so that they can take action to promote peace and security. So, and as media is used to communicate, so media have to communicate on youth action regarding peace and security.
Thank you, Salah. And I want to salute you for all the hard work that you have been doing, even during the time of the Mali unstable situation. You have been championing many activities, and I was following you. Thank you a lot for all the efforts that you have been doing. Now I should move to Walid. Walid from Togo. Walid, hi, are you with us? Could you please?
Yes.
Oh, okay, excellent. You are here. So I would be asking this question. I do know your profile, and I think you could share with us your best practices. How do you see the relation between YPS and SDGs? Why it is so important? The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Hey, Arif, can you repeat?
So I was saying, I do know your profile, So what's the relation between youth peace and security and the SDGs? Why it's important?
Okay, thank you, Mr. It is important that is it possible to close my video because I don't have a good connection in
Yeah,
here.
sure. Go ahead. Go ahead. Please feel free.
Okay. For me, you know, SDGs is a project that all countries are put in place for asking all governments to be try and
Walid, I think you are not having stable access to internet. Could you please verify?
okay, give me just
Okay, now
5
now we can hear you well. Please go ahead.
try again.
Oh, we have lost you. We have lost you, Walid. So now I should go to our guest. Our guest, Ali. Ali, are you still here with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, excellent. Hey,
Yeah,
there
you know,
you
I
go.
just turned off my video for.
No worries, no worries. So, counterproductive impact of city frameworks. Do you think it's important to be to take it in consideration in the lens of the YPS? Wow,
my thinking
that's the question.
It's a, I mean, I think it's unavoidable for the YPS agenda not to engage with the CT field, counterterrorism frameworks, and the way they are interacting with the youth agency, because counterterrorism, when we speak about it, it's a lot about laws and the policies, but it is in practice, when we speak about counterterrorism, we are speaking about the human interaction between security sector actors and particularly young people. So whatever counterterrorism frameworks can say in the policy frameworks and the legal frameworks, it is translated somehow differently when the security sector actors are implementing them. The way I'm saying it, it can be very progressive and it can use really nice language about how great young people are, counterterrorism policy frameworks and those legal frameworks. For example, prevention of violent extremism is one of them. It's UN Secretary General's Plan of Action on Prevention of Violent Extremism. Provides a great analysis of the problem of why violence emerge. It lists everything. It shows everything, but it doesn't necessarily direct towards any direction, but it shows that any sort of marginalization and exclusion may lead to violence. It doesn't necessarily put one singular reason why, but what it does is that any sorts of exclusion may lead to violence, may lead to violent extremism. So that's a to one extent, it's a very good analysis of like able to show how many reasons are there, but it's also risky in the sense of securitizing any social problems that we have to become a counterterrorism issue. So, for example, young people who are dropped off schools, who are less educated, they may be more those frameworks claim that they may be more inclined to violence, but actually in reality, the data doesn't necessarily corroborate this. It's actually challenged that. There's not a monocausal relationship with any of this. So that what those policy frameworks does is that they put out a big conflict analysis about everything any social problem may lead to violence. And then as a response, we need to try to react to all social problems from a security angle and empower security actors to actually engage and foster inclusion through security. That's problematic because it's young people, think about this, is that you're trying to tell young people that, okay, you will be, the best thing you can do is that you can join us and prevent violent extremism. I think it is something that a young person would want, but I know the aspirations and ambitions of young people. They say I want to build peace, I want justice. So what it does with these policy frameworks, it limits ability of young people to imagine, to act and think. It's beyond just it's what young people are ambitious about is that not just that, okay, we are resilient against violent extremism. But they want to say we are resilient for peace. We want peace. We want development. That's the voice you would hear from young people. So if you're creating the peace and security policies in a way that it limits the abilities, the transformative agency of young people to be able to engage in a peace and security practice this way, you may actually you may start limiting their agency to build peace. So this is an important problem, and I just want to say there's a big practical problem here too. What I said sounded a little theoretical, but there's a big problem here. The big problem is those policy frameworks may say, those policy framework, counterterrorism policy frameworks may say they may use very good language. They may add a language around human rights compliance of counterterrorism action. But in the application of this, when it's put in practice, we know security sector actors aren't the most informed people around using power in a proportionate way. We've seen this across all continents, and it's not new. We know this. Security sector actors usually become human rights compliance or treating people in a decent way becomes a secondary thing when it's a security problem from security sector's point of view. So that's a huge problem. I mean, it's the larger, more expansive, broader policy frameworks that are focused on, particularly on security, has to be controlled. And for YPS agenda and for young people, it's unavoidable that they will be interacting one way or another in their life with this, and especially for young men. They are interacting with the security sector actors in one way or another. I mean, yeah. So I'm speaking a lot about security, but I mean, I need to say that this is a problem about. This is not a problem. I mean, YPS is not an agenda that is particularly just about young men. So maybe we should be able to speak a little bit about like the issue from a gendered angle. I will just.
Okay. Speaking about this, how youth can influence the negotiation processes, the peace processes, the peace building processes for sure. How they can play a significant role in this process. To you, Ali.
I mean, Naamanya made great points around what is needed for young people to better engage in political processes. She emphasized diversity and the rural-urban divide, and accessing young people who are beyond elite. That all those are like, I think I strongly agree with that. And what I would add, the way young people can engage and influence political decision making, I think there's we need to see this as like a decision-making processes about security as it's a secretive process usually. It's a security policies are not done in the open to public. Because there is an element about like intelligence, and we can't disrespect that completely, but we need to see that we need to see that there's elite pacts usually, like in peace processes. This is more clearly cut, that there's a mediation, high-level mediation part, for example, is that in the room, like sitting around the table. That is, we usually speak about this in peace process, but it happens actually in almost all political processes. There's an elite pack, and then around that, I would call it around the room, you have you have mechanisms that influence. Those are usually technical processes where it can feed into the elite decision-making processes. But most importantly, I think how young people can influence decision-making processes is an open, free civic space. Is that whether young people, and this is about security, but it's any youth issue, is that whether young people can get together in free civic spaces to define what is the most important angles for them. Do they have that freedoms to come together and look at youth issues from youth angle, and come up with what are youth priorities. And until young people cannot have that free civic space where they cannot mobilize collectively, increase each other's power, their participation in any negotiation rooms, any elite pact, would suffer from accusations of elitism, tokenism, nepotism. So the most important thing is that whoever represents young people, looking at from youth issues, is that whoever represents young people in elite pacts needs to have good connections to the people in the grassroots, to the people in free civic spaces. This is not just for young people. This is for any decision maker involved in high-level decision making, needs to have good connection to the people. And it's the same for young people. For young people, they need to have youth representative needs to have good connection to people outside the room. So for this, I think the most important thing, like to give you like very clear direction for this, is that I think that the priority for young people to understand that like having an open, free civic space is the way to do this from a bottom-up process, rather than someone just appoints a young person, or the quotas are being used to appoint 5 young people into one political process. So I will stop here.
Indeed, thank you. And that's actually what you have mentioned in your research paper entitled "We Are Here." So it speaks about how the youth participation processes is actually framed into 3 layers. So we do have the in, the around, and the outside of the room. Thank you, Ali, for pointing and for clarifying this point to us. So now I move to our friend Sekinat from Nigeria. Are you here, Sekinat? Can we have?
Yeah, I'm here.
Excellent. So, Sekinat, to you, YPS Agenda being in the center of focus of your field activism with the youth in Nigeria. What can you tell us about the youth engagement towards YPS in Africa and also in Nigeria more particularly? The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Like I said, Patient said, I think she explained a lot of things about the challenges we face in Africa. And when I kind of listen to what she said, it feels like Africa as a whole is facing the same kind of challenges in the whole of the continent. Like in Nigeria, for example, there is although we have youth who are participating in youth, peace and security, and whereas we also have youth who are the hoodlums type, which the politicians use at times to commit certain atrocities, like the recent happenings that we saw that happened in Nigeria, the NSAS protest. There were genuine youths who really wanted change, who really wanted to end the police brutality in Nigeria. And later we saw what happened later, like some hoodlums actually hijacked the protest. They started burning everywhere. They started looting, they started doing all sorts of things. And again, our government, they don't want the youth to be inclusive in any kind of policy, regardless it might be, they don't want the youth to be included in governance or anything. They see the youth as activists for different things. I don't know. So I feel the youths are trying. We have a lot of youths in peace building. Yeah, there are a lot. Likewise, we have different ones. We have a lot of youths who are involved in a lot of things that I cannot even say. There is no way the youth can achieve anything in any country if the government does not give them the adequate support. We can't just, even if we want to do, if the government does not give us support, there is no way we can achieve whatever we want to. Because for example, in Nigeria, our leaders, they don't give youth much atmosphere. There's no platform for youth development. They view youth as they view us as violent people. They don't trust us. There's no trust. There's no there's no trust. They don't. In fact, they don't want to include us in anything pertaining to governance. And now that the youths are clamoring for change, they want to be involved in politics. They want to be involved in decision making. They are not even making it easy for them. Even in terms of protest, they don't want us to hear our opinions. They don't want us to voice out. They don't want us to speak. Even when, and that is the only way we can talk to the government, like through protesting and all that. And most youths, actually, I don't know, maybe if we can tackle the issue of illiteracy in Africa and poverty, maybe that way we can truly achieve youth peace and security. Because if we don't tackle that, I don't know how we would connect to the youth. And we also have to improve our advocacy program also, like telling the youth we need to tell the youth to stop stop involving themselves in different violence and conflicts. They shouldn't be the tools for they shouldn't be political talks. They shouldn't be the tools politicians use to disrupt the community elections and whatever. So it's really a very, very challenging issue here in Nigeria and mostly in most African countries. And I think the forces from our leaders, yes.
Thank you, Sikinat. I do believe that the African youth, now more than ever, they are all the time favoring peace over conflict and any kind of hate speeches and violence. Thank you a lot, and also thank you for all the work that you have been doing. Now I should get back to Walid from Togo to enlighten us more and to share with us his expertise in terms of the relation between youth peace and security and the SDGs. Walid, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for all. I want to be direct because SDGs is put in place from United Nations, and it is directly affect youth. Because when we are talking that it directly affect youth, we are talking about 4 priority SDGs. Sorry for my English because I'm Francophone, but I know that you will try to know what am I saying. We have the first SDGs, who is quality education, who affect directly the youth. Okay. The second is gender. When we are talking in French, égalité de sexe. Okay, égalité entre les sexes. The third is decent work and economic growth. And the fourth is industry, innovation, and infrastructure. You know that when we are talking about peace, okay, youth peace and security, we do peace, no school. We don't have no school, okay? We have more gender-based violence also. We have destruction of infrastructure. It is not, the SDGs is not put in place just for when we are talking in French. Mr. Arif, can you help me? Au hasard.
Sure, go ahead. How can I help you?
Okay, d'accord. What is the... Hello?
Yeah, oui, vas-y, je vous entends.
It is something that I want to talk about SDGs and youth peace and security. It is not something we are put in place just because we like to put it in place, okay? And we have 4 SDGs who is directly affect youth. But I want to talk about something also. It is about influence of youth in peace and security. You know, it is something difficult to see the youth influencing political decision, because generally the youth only have a say through, okay, the call of political actor, okay. When you are activists, okay, youth are activists. Allô?
Oui, Walid, on a un peu... On vous
Oui,
écoute
bon,
pas.
ça va aller. Je
Oui,
vais vite.
maintenant ça va. Oui, maintenant ça va. Vas-y.
D'accord. We are rolling back youth engagement and activism. Okay, activism is often say is good to defend a cause. Okay, but it is even better to defend it. Okay, in terms of intergeneration dialogue. I remember 2 months ago, the National Youth Council of Togo organized an event on the international and what can I say, intergenerational bridge, okay, to facilitate exchange between elder and young peoples and make proposal or their synergy. But it is not easy because security is a secret and confidential process. It is not open to youth to integrate this system. Decision making also in advancements, if I can say that, in the advancements of youth peace and security issues, is in fact that the capacity of government to make decisions, okay, from the base, that is to say coming from the population and the community and going up to the level. It is not the good process. We are taking decision, okay, in Francophone region, we are taking decision from the government to community, or it is not possible to reduce violence, extremism, and also today at the level of Togo, the government is working with UNDP. Okay, they are putting in place an interministerial committee on which youth peoples are working in the north region of the bordering with Burkina. Okay, the focus of this project is to fight against extremist violence. Okay, Doc, it is what can I say, because I don't have a good English. You know that, Mr. Arif. I'm so fluently in French, but I'm trying to speak well. I think
That's one of the reasons why I spoke when I was speaking with Mr. Ali. I told him, you need to learn French. In this way, we can interact way much better. And also at the beginning, he said that his disclaimer, I'm not an expert in when it comes to the African topics, especially because most of the Africans, they speak French. But there is this thing that I need to say, that there is always this flavor, this unique flavor when an African speaking French, and also he shift to the English. Oh my God, there is a special spicy ingredient in that. Okay, so now we come to the end of this live webinar. It's actually very cozy, very insightful webinar with all of you. But before we wrap up, I would like to address two questions, okay, to Mr. Ali. My question will be, what are the resources of YPS that can be exploited by the youth, by the public, apart from the key known policy papers that's actually meant for decision makers in the decision position? Okay, go ahead, Ali. And then I will give you my last question. That it will be shared with everyone.
Yeah, I think what I would say is that those policy documents are not for governments only. That's what I would first say, is that young people should read them and learn about them, what it means, and discuss with each other what it means for themselves. And those policy documents, I mean, UN Security Council resolutions governments are not binding to implement them. It's like they need to convince their governments. And for that, what I would suggest, particularly if this is for young people, I would suggest to go to Peace Builder's website. There are good practical toolkits there as well. Is that young people shouldn't necessarily build peace to implement YPS agenda. They can if they would like to. But I think if young people wants to involve in peace building, that's the main goal. I mean, with peace and security agenda and the policy documents at the end of the day is just a tool. The real value is building peace. We should not forget that. And there are really practical toolkits listed in the Peace Builders, unoi.org, I guess. There you can find toolkits about what YPS agenda means, etc. But more important, I think there's a toolkit there, I think, which I find quite useful, about training toolkit for conflict transformation and peace education. So I find that one particularly useful for practitioners to engage in that. And also, I mean, I need to say, we spoke about that, but I think what I would recommend particularly, I wrote the We Are Here report. It's a good report, and I suggest young people to read that. But I think even more importantly, I would suggest every young people to read the Missing Peace study. That study raised the voice of over 4,000 of young people, and a lot of perspectives in that. There's a good amount of research in there, and very synthesized. It's less than 100 pages, and it is free. It's on youthforpeace.info. In that, if you go to that page, you would be able to access key resources there as well.
Thank you, Ali. Indeed, we have all participated in that study, the Missing Piece, and I find it all the time. Whenever I need to find my compass in this YPS agenda, it's actually one of the instructive and insightful documents that I use. I do have a huge folder dedicated only for resources, documents, whether it comes to trainings, research papers, documentaries, and so on. So as I said, we came to the end for this live webinar. I would be addressing this one last question: your one last word to the youth who are following us. So, Martin, you do have the floor. Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't get the question. Please, can
I
you
said
repeat?
one last word.
Okay, if I can say one last word about what we were talking there, is that there are, for me, three ways of influencing decision making, and it's very important for youth to take it seriously. So the first one is the stage that we are in is kind of intergovernmentalism. Government talk about security issues without us. We hear what they said and we have to implement. This is the situation now. But the second one is this kind of liberal intergovernmentalism where government take in consideration popular aspiration in their own nation, and they go with it to international agenda. Is also a source of conflict. And this last one for me is what I call, and what Kofi Annan was calling social multilateralism, open multilateralism, where everyone can have a seat on the table. So now, if we want to achieve something like this, we have to start it by ourselves. Give everyone at every national level the occasion to speak. So we are youth, we can speak with youth of our own nation, no matter the diversity and the origin. So that, for me, that's the thing. It's my own feeling about what Mr. Ali Atiok said and what everyone said there. I thank you. I discovered some people, and I wish another time.
Thank you. Thank you. Namadia, now you do have the floor. One last word.
Thank you. My last word for all the youth out there is knowledge is power. And for you to create any sort of change in whatever capacity you're in, whether you are in a leadership position, whether you're not in a leadership position, whether you're aspiring, or whether you're just frustrated and you want change. Knowledge, power. Understanding your civic duty, understanding your role as a global citizen, understanding the policies that your government have put in place for you to be able to participate meaningfully, or understanding the gaps that exist in the policies that are in place will help you to be able to create meaningful change. I know there is a great social movement going on across Africa and even in Europe, where you're seeing young people going onto the streets or having these social media hashtags. We have End SARS, we have Congo is bleeding, we have the gender-based violence hashtag from Namibia, and also in Uganda we have End Police Brutality. Those are all great movements, but we have to translate them into meaningful change. And like the lady from Nigeria said, meaningful change won't come if you are provoked into violence, or if you're being used by someone who has ulterior motives for you as a young person. So understanding our power and understanding how we can turn our social movements into effective change is what's going to help us in creating the Africa we want. So those are my last words to Africans. And yeah, it's a pleasure to have this dialogue during the month for African youth. And I'm pleased to meet all of you, and I look forward to engaging with you on different social media networks and sharing information.
Thank you, Namania, for your kind words. Thank you a lot. Sekinat, the floor is yours. One last word. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. My word will be to advise the youths to to participate more in peace building. Also, we should learn to accept dialogue. Although we want our opinion to be, we want our voice to be heard. We want to talk. But still, we should still give room for dialogue. We should bring ourselves with our leaders to the round table, so we can settle whatever differences. We can tell them things we want to do and we want them to achieve, instead of participating in destroying things, burning everywhere. And that way, I feel we can achieve a lot of things. Because if we continue doing this, the government will still, or our leaders will still keep viewing us as violent people. They won't. They will still not take us seriously. So it is important that we change our perspective and we start behaving the right way. We start doing right things in order to promote. Yes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Sakina. Thank you a lot for all your remarks. Walid, one last word, please. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for this initiative. I have just 3 points as invitation for you, for government and countries partners. So the first is the priority today for us in the youth peace and security agenda remain the synergy of youth, African youth, and especially the frank collaboration between African Youth Office and the African Union, with organizations that weight their what can I say, the weight in the achievements of an African of an Africa of peace. Okay, the second is I appeal here to the goodwill and Africa to support these youth who are working hard for peace and security in our continent. The third is to invite governments for the preservation of peace must not become politicized. It is not possible for us to politicize our effort, youth efforts in their exercise and in our function. For a better realization, the youth must be more representative also in the institution with African Union, United Nations. Thank you for all, and see you next.
Thank you, Walid, for all your remarks. Indeed, youth should not accept their principles to be politicized, or even their interests to be politicized. You guys need to think about the next generation as you have been thinking about yourself. You need to think about the next generation, that we need to leave a free, positive tail impact for the generation to come, hopefully. So, Ali, we are going to close with you. What would be your last word to everyone?
Okay, this is a big request. I think maybe just to say,
you will be remembered. You will be remembered with this word. So go ahead.
I think I wanna just like reiterate what Namia said, is that it's important that we think about how this very progressive youth social movements that are usually led by young people, how they are running into institutions. We need to really think about this creatively, and this should be the central. I think Namia made the point so clearly. I can't say more. I think that's exactly the issue we need to really focus on. So I think maybe we should remember Namia instead of me.
yeah. Everyone in this. I'm very fortunate to have one of the great youth peace builders among my generation. I'm very privileged to work with them in order to advance the youth peace and security agenda in Africa through our network, we are doing much of research and think tank talks, webinars, because I and we all believe that we need to join our efforts in order to achieve the YPS agenda in Africa, not only at the continental level, but also at the regional and the national level. That's one, it's the way actually to achieve the YPS agenda at all the levels. So thank you a lot to all our speakers and to our guest speaker for being with us, for sharing with us your thoughts and your expertise. Thank you for your time, and thanks also to those who are following us on online. We hopefully this webinar was insightful to you. We wish you all the best, and be sure that there is always youth talents who are pushing forward the achievements of YPS agenda in Africa. Thank you. Shukran jazilan. Gracias. And bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.